Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Miles, and this is X-Rays, where knowledge meets inspiration in the intricate dance of industry evolution. I'm back to reconnect you with someone who spent over 4 decades helping organizations not just grow, but actually improve how they grew. He's deeply focused on people, on sustained success, and on making quality something that's lived, not just measured. I'm glad to have another meaningful conversation with the Managing Director and CEO of ACI Global and e-Quip. Please welcome back Ian Erskine. Hi.
Hi, Miles. Welcome back. And
Hello.
I trust you had a wonderful weekend with your lovely family.
Yes, thank
And
you.
I hope everyone else enjoyed their weekends. And what's the word for it? Up and roaring and ready to go for a wonderful week ahead.
Yes, to that. And I'm really happy to see you again. So, today our topic may sound simple on the surface, but it goes pretty deep, I'm sure. The quality of an organization and how it's really shaped by future ready leadership, people development, and of course, accelerating continuous improvement. So, let me start here, Ian. When we talk about the quality of an organization, it's often measured by outputs or performance indicators, but in your experience, how much of that quality really comes down to future ready leadership and how people are guided day to day?
A very interesting question, actually. And it comes down to the adoption of mission, vision, and values and culture in a way that is concise and easy to understand. In a way, it needs to achieve a unity of purpose involving all people within the organisation. And you need to be able to ascertain within the organisation the way they move forward doing business. And as I said before we came on air, that this is where, as an auditor or a consultant or even an inspector, you need to be able to look to find the positives and the good which is being achieved by the people within the organisation, because that's where it all come from. And as I said, that's where you tie that back to the mission, the vision, the values, and the culture.
Mhm.
And you challenge people. Often, one of the first questions I ask people within the organisation is, what exciting thing did you do over the weekend? And they, quite often they open up and tell a lovely story. And then I said, okay, so what has been the most magnificent thing that you have done within the organisation since I was here last, 12 months or 6 months? And it's interesting. It makes them think, but it brings out the good that they have been doing.
Mhm.
And I say to people, virtually, we are all good people. Yes, sometimes we make mistakes, but I do feel that it's something that we don't dwell enough on, is the good things we actually achieve during the day, during the week, during the year. Because if we go back and think and pinch ourselves and said, wasn't that a great idea that we talked about and we implemented, 3 or 4 months ago, and things like that, because that determines the culture of the business.
It shifts the focus from just results to how those results are created. And I like the idea of building unity of purpose. It's something you really feel in strong teams.
And that, in a strong way, creates an internal environment which people are engaged and committed to achieve the organisation's objectives
Mhm.
through the fulfilment of not only the organisation but their own objectives and aspirational aims. And if you talk to people about this, quite often they'll then align that with sustainability,
Mhm.
culture, and ethical beliefs.
Yeah.
And it's interesting now as we move forward, I'm still getting people that are now reminding me of our podcast in which we ran, in which I demonstrated to the world actually that what had happened here in Australia, they'd pulled down the tops of the mountains at Mount Kosciuszko. And I'm reminding people when people are talking about doing the right thing, and they often remind me, Ian, your podcast brought that to bear, and we are still bringing that to attention of whoever we speak to. And
Mhm.
this is what I want people to do. And again, if you think of the positives, yes, the negatives there, talk about them as well. But the positives are the things that we should always be talking about, because that aligns our own beliefs to sustainability, culture, and ethics which
Mhm.
basically is we're demonstrating, yes, sometimes I make mistakes, but all in all, I'm a good person. I want to do the right thing all the time.
Yes, and since you
Yeah.
mentioned culture, Ian, that naturally brings me to the ISO approach, which talks a lot about people focus, shared values, and people engagement. So, how can leaders actually create that kind of environment where people feel responsible and empowered? Again, not just ticking boxes for compliance.
No, well, three important points need to be made here. First of all, the establishment of the organisation's identity, and they need, in that identity, they need to embrace its mission, vision, and aspirations of all its people,
Mhm,
right? There needs to be a promotion of culture of trust and integrity, promoting do it once, do it right, and understanding that there are no grey areas between right and wrong. Now, this is an interesting one because quite often within the workplace, you will see that people are being driven to achieve an objective, whether that's getting a product out on time or something else along those lines. There needs to be a very, very careful understanding that you must not push people beyond their limits, because if you push people beyond their limits and then people's adrenaline starts to rush, yes, yes, we've got to get it out, we've got it out quickly, then you will tend to cut corners. And that's
mhm.
where you then make mistakes. And
Yeah.
again, that's where you've got to pinch yourself and say, no, hang on. If we go too fast, we're going to miss that point. We mustn't miss that point because quality means do it once, do it right. And and again, with this, there needs to be the establishment and the maintenance of teamwork with an emphasis on a team effort. Again, as we've mentioned many times, rowing all together at the same pace to
Mhm,
everyone's maximum effort and to achieve the aim.
mhm.
And I think that's where this common aim comes from with ISO standards, which again, as you and I were discussing before we came on air, ISO standards are very, very important. And but in some respects they're misunderstood because quite often I'll hear people constantly mention the word compliance. You've got to
Uh-huh.
comply, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. ISO is not a compliance standard or standards in any way. They are conformance standards, and
Mhm,
that's the beauty of them because if you want to conform to comply, you will always comply doing it naturally. You should
uh-huh.
not be forced to comply. And
Mhm,
that's why I quite often stop people when they say, oh, no, ISO standards are compliant. They are not a compliance standard.
mhm.
People choose to go down the ISO path on their own tuition because they want to do it, they want to conform, they want to do it once, do it right.
Yes, very clear. And that statement, there's no gray areas between right and wrong, is really powerful. Also, when people feel trusted, they show up differently. It stops being about, do I have to do this? And becomes, I want to get this right. And it's a chain reaction. That shift alone can transform performance, right? And taking this a step further into structure and tools, Ian, how does something like the ACI Global 360 Professional Development Review or PDR profile actually help strengthen responsibility and authority for processes while also supporting continuous professional development or CPD across teams?
Yes, this is really a great point. And again, three points to be made here. It's most important to provide people with the necessary resources and training and the authority to act with accountability. Leaders must be able to walk the talk and understand we're all human and we do always want to do the right thing. But again, we all in our own selves have limitations. Okay. So that's where we need to talk about appropriate performance targets.
Mhm.
We need to talk about and put in measures where we constantly review how people are performing. And
Uh-huh.
again, my practice and experience with industry tells me, and I often see this, where someone will come to work and they might not feel 100%, right? Even simple little things where someone might have not seriously damaged, but they might have pulled a muscle in their thigh or their leg and their movement is not as as fluent as it was when they were working the previous week. And this is where if you're doing a constant reviews, and I challenge managers whenever they go for a walk around the factory floor or walk around the office, just be open-minded, have a look, review, stop and listen to the receptionist taking that call. And I'll give you an example of this where I was with the managing director and we stopped and we listened to the lady that was taking the call. And I thought immediately it wasn't something quite right. You could almost hear the person on the other side of the phone with a raised voice. And eventually the lady got to the point, and I was so proud of her. She immediately said, excuse me, do not raise your voice with me. And that made it worse. He actually then raised it more. And she turned to the managing director, and the managing director said, just hand the phone to me. She handed the phone to the managing director, and he just simply said, this call is now being cancelled. I'm the managing director. I do not approve of you abusing my lady on the other side of this phone. And he hung up. And that's again, see, this is where reviews matter, because if we hadn't have walked and watched, she may or may not have, she may have just left that go for just a little bit longer, where she would have been personally traumatized. And
Mm-hmm.
again, this is where I'm saying where your reviews are necessary. And taking that a little bit further, this is also where there needs to be the promotion of shared values, fairness and ethical behaviour, so that are sustainable and at all within all levels of the organisation, again with a collaborative relationship from top down, which was clearly demonstrated by that experience I just demonstrated there, right? Now, in doing this, when we're driving a culture of true 360-degree task, skills, and verification and ongoing monitoring of capability, this enshrines an aspiration within the workforce. Because when you're doing these reviews, quite often you bring out the positives, right? You
Mm-hmm.
look at the positives. And also, you can also find, well, is that the exact way you should be doing it? And quite often
Mm-hmm.
they will step back and say, "Oh, I've found a better way of doing that. That's why I'm now doing it this way."
Uh-huh.
And you step back and say, "Good on you," right? And this ensures sustained success for both the people and the organisation.
Yeah. So giving people the resources, training, clarity, and accountability at the same time. Leaders got to do what they preach. And once people know their role and have the necessary tools, performance becomes much more consistent. So when all of that starts to come together, Ian, when organizations align responsibility and authority, people development, and CPD, what kind of shift do you typically see in terms of performance indicators, accountability, and even readiness for ACI Global certification or ISO certification?
Again, a very important point, and this is where it's so important in establishing and maintaining the organisation structure to ensure and enhance competitiveness and driving, accelerating continuous improvement with a people focus through high achievers and aspirational goals of everyone. And again, this is where your reviews are so important because it brings out the aspirational goals of people when they're performing that task under review. That brings out the best because people say, "Oh, I'm now having my biannual or annual or weekly review. I'm going to
Mhm.
demonstrate how good I do this," right? And that's again where it brings out the aspiration of everyone. And individually and collectively, we need to reinforce the organisation's values, ensuring the alignment of each individual, right? Their values, their goals, and their aspirations, and where they are at within their career.
Yeah.
Because quite often, as you move forward, even sometimes the individual themselves don't come forward, but quite often you can actually see, wow, how good these people are, how good this guy is doing this. Let's see if he can take the next step up. And it could be team leader, could be
Uh-huh.
supervisor. And it's interesting. I've watched this transpire in the workplace where once that collective decision's been made, where yes, I'm going to step up, I want to be the supervisor, they even achieve and strive to do even better within
Yeah.
their role. It
Mm-hmm.
brings out the betterment of them. And this is where we talk about the communication of achieved success externally and internally, both personally and within teams, on an ongoing basis, and indeed accelerating continuous improvement, ACI.
Mm-hmm. Well, it just shows that certification is a reflection of how well the organization is functioning internally, almost like a byproduct of doing things right. And finally, Ian, bringing it all together for leaders looking to truly equip their workforce and workplace and drive accelerating continuous improvement. How do solutions like ISO equip, quality TQM software, ISO certified courses, and ISO personal certification help organizations move from simple compliance through conformance to becoming genuinely future ready?
Well, this is everything we strive to demonstrate within our products. Hence, we say equip your workforce and workplace. And this is where, over many years, we've now put together the solutions, the toolkits on, and basically, this is where you get an effective communication with people and their teams in the organisation, discussing issues that have general impact on people, including political, economic, social, technical, legal, and environmental sustainability, which is your pestle, right? Now, if we just drill on the issues for a little while, okay? Issues are quite often things that people allow to fester until they become an not only an issue, they become a hazard within the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
So the challenge within ourselves, ACI Global and eQuip, is that providing the tools to people gets them to understand, wow, there's an issue beginning to come here. Let's deal with that straight away. Make that a positive, okay? Because if you allow the issue to remain unattended to, it will become a hazard and then will put you in a position where you've got to actually step back, do a root cause analysis, find out what the issue was, and start again. Whereas what we say to people is nip it in the bud straight away, turn it into a positive,
Mm-hmm.
and basically then you won't have any hiccup within your business. And within equipping your workforce and your workplace, we are in fact supporting leadership development at all levels of the organisation. As I said before, doing your reviews puts you in a position where the reviewer can say, wow, Jane, I think now you can step up to be the team leader of our call centre because you've demonstrated throughout the last 6 to 12 to 18 months
Uh-huh.
your leadership potential. And that's where, again, this all comes together. And I think probably just to wrap this up, I think one of the final things I just want to make the point here is with our toolkits. This gives and supports organisations with an ISO and industry expert. Okay, so we challenge and encourage organisations to take on a individual third party outside the organisation, fully experienced in both ISO and industry,
Mm-hmm.
take them on a basis of where they're there at any time they need to from the organisation. They put them on a retainer,
Mm-hmm.
and that way you get a third party looking in, so to speak, which is an important part of a the ability to have a standoff third party coming in and looking in rather than people that are working within the organisation all the time. It gives you that independence, so to speak,
Okay.
and with that experience and independence, that also adds to equipping the workforce and workplace so that they can conform to comply.
Yes. Thanks for that Very clear distinction, Ian, because compliance gets you started, but continuous improvement and people engagement are what actually keep you moving forward. And I learned from you through our podcast that that's where sustained success really comes in. And I think that's a really big takeaway from this. The quality of an organization revolves around people, leadership, and how well everything connects from TQM and performance indicators to continuous professional development and shared values. And as you said, when those things align, that's when organizations evolve. So thank you so much again, Ian, for sharing such practical insights to our audience.
Yeah, no, thanks so much again for giving myself and ACI Global this opportunity, Miles. And look, I encourage all our viewers to, click the like and please provide a comment because, again, we want to hear your feedback
Yes.
of what Miles and I have been talking about. And because, again, feedback is how we all learn. And if we can improve in any way, we want you to click on that star box, give us a rating, provide us a comment. That way it can be fed through to Miles, and then she can come back to myself and
Yes.
say, we've had a comment in reference to this, and we'll more than likely say, what a great idea. And we could do another podcast on that.
Thank you for gracing our show.
Thank you again.
On that note, thank you all for tuning in as always. If you're looking to strengthen your organization through people development, ISO certification for people and their organizations, or even explore tools like ISO eQuip Quality TQM software, make sure to check out aciglobal.com.au. And we left more links below, as Ian said, for you to explore further. There's a lot there that can really help you equip your workforce and workplace for long term success. And again, just a heads up, keep your eyes open for this one because we're also streaming it on the ACI Global website. In case you didn't hear Ian earlier, don't forget to like and comment so we know what you think about our episode. This has been your host, Miles, with Ian Erskine, reminding you to stay focused, driven, and inspired with X Raced.